Well, welcome to the San Diego Air and Space Museum today. We have a very, very special guest, a NASA astronaut, Woody Spring. I'm going to read here just for a second so I don't screw this up for all the fans who are listening. Woody Spring spent more than 165 hours in space aboard the space shuttle Atlantis, including 12 hours performing 2 EVAs, or spacewalks. Woody is a graduate of the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, where he earned a degree in engineering. After graduation, he served 2 tours of duty in Vietnam, the first with the famed 101st Airborne Division. The second tour came immediately after flight school, where he served as a helicopter pilot with the 1st Cavalry Division. When he returned from Vietnam, he earned a master's degree from the University of Arizona in 1964. And Woody, I got to insert something here. My brother is a retired Army helicopter pilot. So, being the Navy pilot, I have the disease in the family, as we would joke around with our dad. After a short stint as flight test engineer, Woody attended the U.S. Naval Test Pilot School at Pax River, or NAS.
Paxit River, yeah.
Okay. Before returning to the Army's flight test facility at Edwards Air Force Base to complete 4 years as an experimental test pilot before joining NASA. Today, he is a professor at the Defense Acquisition University. Woody, thank you very, very much for joining us. We were able to talk for a few minutes before this, ladies and gentlemen. And Woody is a true friend of the San Diego Air and Space Museum, of our entire region and the nation, and makes himself available on many, many occasions to help us inspire young people. So, Woody, welcome.
Thank you.
So, okay, so as we get into space, we've got a very interesting launch coming up here on the 27th of this month with Elon Musk and the SpaceX gents. Before we ask you some questions about what it's like getting ready to go into space, what do you think of that program, and how excited are you knowing that we're going to be heading back out there, and we haven't been there for about 10 years? And how excited are you?
I'm very excited. It's long overdue that the United States resumed its ability to launch our own astronauts into space. Since 1911, we've had to, pay the Russians to take us to space, and anybody that went to the space station had to learn Russian, and that's where their training went on. So it's long overdue. Not that Elon Musk didn't do a wonderful job coming to the rescue, if you will, but he beat out Lockheed Martin and Boeing and NASA themselves to actually give us the launch capability back again. That's awesome.
Good. What do you like best about the Musk program?
He did what a lot of people thought was impossible. They said, you can't, even with $100 million backing you, you're just not going to be able to start with a bunch of rookies and be able to build spaceships that'll safely go to space. And he did it. He had a couple of failures up front. They learned from them. And he was kind of like the early days of NASA, where we had just a bunch of very, very smart people dedicated to doing the job. And he's definitely a slave driver for his folks, but they love him for it too.
Well, that's great. And certainly I think everyone really enjoys watching their particular program and their aggressiveness. I think we all believe they want to be there, and they're trying to do it right. Okay, so you've talked a lot about preparation for going into space, and can you talk a little bit about leading up to a launch, leading up to all the training that you go through, the years of training, as you know, and just kind of the Woody Spring view of how do we finally get in that craft?
Okay, well, so I won't start with how do you get selected as an astronaut, although I answer that question often with folks want to join. When you join the astronaut office, you start off with 2 basic jobs. One is training to learn whatever you're going to fly on. If you're a scientist, what your experiments will be and things like that. So the first job is to train, and then they also give you another. It's a part-time job that goes with training. In my case, it was a shuttle avionics integration lab doing regression testing on software for the shuttle. Okay, and I did that for 18 months, and then I moved to the vehicle integration test team, where I'd fly to the Cape Kennedy Space Center or the Cape Canaveral area in the T-38, and then work being a surrogate crew for the shuttle track the anomalies, track what's going on with it, and then come back every week again and brief the crew on the status of their shuttle, their payloads, and things like that. That was just a wonderful job. I'd come back from that and my face would hurt from smiling so much, being around space shuttles and ships and things like that. All right, so depending on you and what they need, they'll have you doing those two things, training and then working. Then about a year and a half before your launch, at my point, that was like 3.5 years into NASA, they finally name you to a crew with about a year out to go. And then you start training on your specific mission and get to know your crew and become, good friends and learn how to work together pretty well. About a month before flight now, they separate you from your family. You move from your home to a trailer inside a building at Johnson Space Center. This is health stabilization and isolation. Get you away from the kids because wonderful and you miss them and all. But, we want to see somebody that's fairly sickly. It's a first grade teacher. The kids just share everything they got. And we just don't need coming down with chicken pox and stuff like that just before we launch. All right, so you do that for maybe a month before flight. 3 days or so before flight, we flew in a formation down to Kennedy Space Center and landed there and go into crew quarters like every other crew has done since the Gemini program. Those 3 days are filled with a lot of briefings on your system. Working out, jogging. Oh, they got all kinds of stuff left over from the Gemini and Mercury days. Somebody wanted to do archery, so we got an archery set indoors. Somebody wanted to do indoor bowling, we got that too. Darts, you name it. There's things to keep you busy. But then you finally get down to the day of launch, and you got the day before. You got a traditional. Everybody goes out to the beach house. The beach house, and at the beach house, you get a chance to just see your wife and family again, but not the kids. It's just one more time getting together as a crew. It's just a tradition. But the day of launch is when you finally get up in the crew van and head out to the pad. Now, morning took place at 4:30 in the afternoon for us because we were NASA's second night launch. So you climb into the van, you ride out to the pad, and we got out to the pad maybe at 6:30 for a 7:30 launch. So this was the day before Thanksgiving in 1985, full moon, but it's already dark out there. And as you look up, you approach this thing, the stack is huge. So the whole world is illuminated, and there's the shuttle on its two white solid rocket boosters on the orange external tank, lit by xenon searchlights, the full moon out there, and the thing is just awesome. It's gorgeous. So we all climb into the elevator and go up to the flight deck, the launch deck rather, on the top of the mobile launcher platform. And then you get to walk around these 15-foot diameter solid rocket boosters. On that is hung the external tank, and then the shuttle's hung on that. And this thing is not inert. This thing is alive. It's vibrating. It just vibrating with energy, and it's gurgling. It's charged with liquid oxygen, liquid hydrogen. The liquid hydrogen boils at minus 420 degrees Fahrenheit. It's a 70-degree Florida day, so it's starting to, the gases are starting to heat up a little bit. The hydrogen goes over to a burn pond. We got dancing flames going 35, 40 feet high. The xenon lights on us. The thing is gurgling and rumbling at you. Oh, man, this is so cool. Under each of the engines, there's a baloney bag of water to isolate the energy that these things are going to put out from the pad itself. And there's also the water tank that slushes like 35 million gallons of water on the deck just to isolate the gantry from all that energy. Well, after a few minutes of walking around there, we get back in the elevator and go up to the flight deck. Just north of there is where they got these 3 gondolas if you have to bail out. Something going on that's survivable. You climb into those and hit a paddle, and it just slides you down, break through the fence if you need to, or get into a little tank. There's an Army APC there, Armored Personnel Carrier. We never did use that, but it's there. Just like you would do if you're going for a long car ride, the best practice is everybody go to the bathroom. So one deck up from that, there's a toilet. There's no door. It's been burned off. There's no toilet seat. It's been burned off. And the hot and cold water pipes, it looked like a plumber kept this blowtorch on them for 100 hours. Every color of the rainbow and bent-in seas just from the power of that thing. Oh, man. All right, you get back down, and it's time to climb in. All we had to do was just put on our helmets. We just wore Nomex flight suits, light blue, not this color, but the light blue ones. Now they're wearing pressure suits. But, just put on your helmets. and crawl into your location. You have to crawl into a seat that's like laying down on the floor, so your back is on the floor because we're getting ready to launch. So they got platforms in there so you're not kicking switches and things like that. But you get in, you get strapped in, put your comms on, and then the support crew, which is one of the jobs I used to do, bats out, shake your hands, see you guys in a week, and then they lock the hatch. So that's the prep for it.
Okay, so you're a young girl or a young boy, and you're watching and listening to this. Okay, would you, what makes you say, I want to go do that?
When I'm still a teacher, I'm a college professor, and many times, and I introduce myself as a former astronaut test pilot, and after class, some of them will come on up and say, I'd really like to do that program. Would you mentor me on what to do on it? Sure, let's talk about it. Are you a risk taker? I don't know. I've never done anything risky. Okay, then why don't you find out if you are? Go do something reasonably dangerous, but sane. So, well, like what? Well, the last guy I did this with was we were up at China Lake. And so he's trying to search for things. And I said, well, how about mountain climbing or skydiving or a lot of things? And one of the other students says, hey, I'm on the mountain rescue team because we got people on the John Muir Trail all the time get themselves in trouble. Why don't you come join us? We'll teach you safely how to do mountain climbing. It'll be a chance to figure out whether you're a risk taker or not. But if you're not a risk taker, this is not something you want to do. I, on the other hand, enjoy doing things safely that other people might think are dangerous. I mean, before I joined NASA, I raced motorcycles. I love mountain climbing. I love whitewater river running, spelunking, scuba diving, but I did them sanely. Part of the astronaut interview that you might do, if you get to draw down, you're going to spend 2 sessions with a shrink, and he wants to know if you're a risk taker. Yeah, I love to go 100 miles an hour through school zones. Wrong answer. Not that type of risk taker. That's stupid. I'm an intelligent risk taker. I love to do dangerous things safely. And that's what they're looking for. So if that's you, if you really enjoy an adrenaline rush and doing cool things, then for heaven's sake, go for it. If you're really not, if you're much more comfortable being on the ground and supporting something like that, we need hundreds and thousands of engineers to run the consoles and make the systems work for us. So you can be part of it. You just may not want to be the test pilot or the guy doing it.
Good. I think that's very appropriate. I can relate to, landing on an aircraft carrier at night is not.
Yeah.
And it's not something that you necessarily think about when you're a sophomore in high school.
No.
You just don't think of those kinds of things. So I think that is that's a great series of metaphors. Okay, for some people who won't know what spelunking is, though, you've got to tell them what it is.
Spelunking is cave diving or cave exploration. I got my master's in University of Arizona in Tucson. And I read in a book that there was a cave that nobody had done anything with. It's a commercial cave now that they take people through, but then it was not. And said, you got to go down toward Nogales, and just after you pass the Greyhound track, hang a left in there, and about a mile in, I'm looking for an entrance to a cave. It turned out to be about a 1-foot hole in the ground. Really? Am I crawling into a coyote den or what? So we went in there with headlights on, and finally you just realized I'm in a limestone cave. We ended up having to go get ropes and come back because it's a long descent to get into that, but it's almost a pristine cave. It's gorgeous. Absolutely lovely. Again, it's a commercial cave now, but yeah, that's cave exploration.
So pretty much the shuttle was kind of a little bigger.
Oh yeah, a little bit. Well, that's another thing. I want to make sure you're not claustrophobic.
Right.
During my slideshow, I show the ladies from the class of '78, and they're in front of the personal rescue sphere. It looks like a giant beach ball. And if you make it in for, again, the interviews, then that's one of the things they do is you stick you in this 36-inch diameter beach ball and just leave you sitting alone in a dark room. You're wired for sound. And if you're claustrophobic, get me out of here. Most people go to sleep. I did, so,
Right.
That's a comfortable position. Just wake me up when it's over.
Yeah, just get the temperature right.
Yeah.
Okay, so, they strapped you in. Describe the launch.
The launch is again, Yeah, I only had one launch, so this is incremental disclosure to me. So you're sitting there on your back, and people ask about, were you afraid getting ready to launch? This is no. I've been dreaming of this for the last, really 20 years of my life, but absolutely for the last, 300 and 400 days. So no, I want to launch. Yeah, $100 million worth of launch or something like that. Hey, I'm paying $75 a night for my wife's hotel room. I got to launch, whatever. It's one of those things, And so you're sitting there, and I've been part of the launch thing because I was on this vehicle integration team, listening to all my friends launching and taking their turn. And, so you're just listening as go through the countdown. There's built-in hold, but very slowly we transfer control from the Launch Control Complex at Kennedy Space Center to the shuttle. All right. Now we've got the computers in the shuttle are in charge. You start the fuel cells. Now the electric is coming on board. Later on, we'll start the APU, the auxiliary power units. Now I've got hydraulic power. Now the vehicle's starting to rock and roll and shake as they gimbal the engines and make sure all those things are right. Finally, you're getting down to the final countdown. We start the main engines at about 5 seconds before liftoff, and they come up to full power at 3 seconds. And all of a sudden, from in a relatively quiet environment, all of a sudden, it's this huge roar, and it's like lions just screaming their heads off in the room behind you. Oh my, this is just, whoa. And the vehicle just starts vibrating with energy. 3, 2, 1. And it's like somebody hit the back of your chair with a sledgehammer. Liftoff is instantaneous. Boom. And you watch the gantry go like that out of your window. And you're leaving planet Earth one way or the other. It is awesome. At this point, you don't really feel that much other than this 1G that presses you, this 3Gs that press you back into your seat. We accelerate to 3Gs, and now we're going through the thick part of the atmosphere. If you've ever stuck your hand out a car window at 60 or 80 miles an hour, okay, it'll blow your hand back. So, we're going through the thick part of the atmosphere. The shuttle's going through load relief on all its elevons and control surfaces, and it feels like you're in a pickup truck full of sheet metal going over railroad track. It's banging and rocking and rolling. Holy cow, is this normal? And the answer is yes, that's normal. For the first 2 minutes, you're going through, we call it the first stage. At the 2-minute point, you're at about 65,000 feet going Mach 3, and the solid rocket boosters are just about burned out. So you feel the energy all of a sudden starting to dissipate. The commander throttles back to about 1G, and it feels like you're floating. Then bam! And you can hear the solid rocket boosters being blown off, and you can watch them flow out the head window, the main windows. You can actually watch them go down a little bit.
Okay, I want you to repeat something just for a second. 2 minutes, 65,000 feet, and you're passing 3 times the speed of sound.
That's right.
Okay.
But you're above, at this point, you're above the sensible atmosphere. You're right at that. Right. And then as soon as the solid rocket boosters are gone, the commander spools back up to 3Gs of acceleration. And for the next 6.5 minutes, you stay there at 3Gs. It's relatively quiet after the solid rocket boosters. But all of a sudden, at 6.5 minutes later, it gets really quiet when the main engine stops. We've got MECO, main engine cutoff. And I still remember taking a pencil out of my pocket and putting it in front of me, and it floats. Ow, we're on orbit. Mary giggles on the intercom, And now it's time to get out of your chair, get your helmets off, your boots off, store your seats, get rid of the comms equipment, and we got to get to work. First thing you got to do is open the payload bay doors, activate the toilet, because everybody's been holding it for the last, almost hour and a half now in a position where you're on your back being vibrated like crazy, scientifically designed to make you have to go real bad, all right? 45 minutes later, we have to circularize with another burn to make sure we go into a circular orbit instead of just coming back home in a parabola, but you're on orbit. And for us, we had to launch our first satellite on the 6th Rev, so there you go.
Go for main engine start. We have main engine start. 2, 1. Booster ignition and the final liftoff of Discovery. A tribute to the dedication, hard work, and pride of America's space shuttle team. The shuttle has cleared the tower.
This is Mission Control Houston. The space shuttle now rolling over onto its back with a 10-minute ride into orbit. Discovery now making one last reach for the stars. Discovery's engines are now throttling down as the orbiter passes through the area of maximum pressure, reducing the stress on the shuttle as it goes supersonic.
Discovery Houston, you are go at throttle up.
Commander Steve Lindsay acknowledging the call from Capcom Charlie Hobaugh as Discovery's 3 main engines throttle back up. Lindsay is joined on the flight deck by pilot Eric Bowen, mission specialist Al Drew, and Nicole Stott. Mission specialist Mike Barrett and Steve Bowen. Discovery's 3 main engines are burning fuel at a rate that would drain an average swimming pool in about 25 seconds. The engines, combined with the solid rocket boosters, produce more than 7 million pounds of thrust. 1 minute, 50 seconds into the flight, we're standing by for separation of the twin solid rocket boosters. Discovery now traveling 2,695 miles an hour. Its altitude 24 miles. Downrange from the Kennedy Space Center, 29 miles. Booster separation confirmed. Discovery's guidance is now converging as the shuttle's onboard computers fine-tune the flight.
Wow, nice description.
Quite
And
wonderful.
and for all of those who have been to Disneyland in the old days, it was an e-ticket ride by
Definitely an
Emirates.
e-ticket ride, yeah. They don't even know what that is anymore. That's an anachronism.
No, exactly. So we're dating ourselves just a bit.
Yep.
Okay, so you know, there you are. You're out there, and now you see, what's coming into our future. You know that we're going to return to our own ability as a nation, of course, and to service the International Space Station. But you can certainly see the yearning and hear the yearning for deep space exploration, go beyond, whether it's back to the moon, Mars, etc. Why is it so important? Certainly, as a leader of the world, as John Kennedy challenged our nation a number of years ago, why is it so important to our world, our nation, that we get back out there amongst them?
Well, we've never really lost our lead in space, although it is being challenged pretty steadily right now. We need to get into deep space for a number of reasons. One is we only know about the universe and what's possible materially by what we found on Earth, basically. We got the periodic table tells us things are possible, but in these thermal furnaces of neutron stars and big stars, that's where we get the heavier elements, iron and gold and things like that. So we don't even know what is out there that we might find that is not on Earth. The Chinese have a corner on the market for rare earth elements. We need to find those. You mentioned our leadership in space. We need to retain the leadership in space. The free world wants to be partners in space. And they're used to our leadership in space, which parlays to leadership back on Earth. So if we have to go against adversaries again, we don't want to fight anybody alone. We don't want to fight anybody. But if we have to fight, we want it to be coalition. So leadership in space brings us back to leadership on Earth. In terms of deep space, the future of mankind depends on us being able to get off the Earth at some point. About a few billion years in the future, our sun is going to burn out. There's 3 rocky planets inside between Earth and Mercury and Mars, and Venus. Those are 3 rocky planets, kind of sister planets. Venus has got a runaway greenhouse effect. That could happen. Mars has lost its liquid core and it's a solid rock now. Earth has still got the liquid core, which lets us have a magnetosphere, which protects us from the sun's solar winds. All right. At some point, we could lose our liquid core. At some point, we could have an asteroid come and destroy the Earth. So if the human race is going to survive past our sundial, we've got to get out of this solar system and into other solar systems and galaxies so that we can seed the universe with not just us, but with the plants and animals from Earth. We're probably not the only intelligent life form out there, but we're the only one we know. If we want to survive, this is part of our future. And it starts with going to Mars, but we have to prove the technology to go to Mars by going to the moon. It's what they called in Apollo times, standing on the shoulders of giants. You take what is known before, you add to it and build it. And it's a wonderful way to go to space. It's what we have to do. Did I answer that one enough, or keep talking?
No, you did great. Because I certainly think everything you're saying is true. It's a very, very exciting time. It's kind of like my personal belief in reincarnation, and it's very simple and it's very basic. I hope so. And
I'd like to believe it too.
That's right. That we'd all like to do this again, because it's going to be more exciting for those young boys and girls, okay, in their futures to make a difference, to be on the shoulders of people like you and the others, okay, who have gotten us out there. And now it's time to get back out there. And certainly the current administration's commitment to being back on the moon by, I think, 2024, is very commendable, because I think it's something that is important to us as a people, certainly as a world also, but as a people. I've used in many of my presentations, you'll get a kick out of this one, the challenge we Americans encountered is we reached the West Coast. So we couldn't say, "Go west, young man," was the phrase of the day. And so we had to go somewhere. And thus, it's up, it's down, somewhat underwater. Certainly we can find out a lot by going underwater as well as into space. But space is where it all starts to make sense if we can start, putting it together. I do remember probably the funniest thing I ever heard in a response was Charlie Duke, who you know very well, is a good friend of yours. And, it was the rock collection protocol. Okay. And Charlie said, he said, it was so complicated, I just picked up one of every color. And it was just kind of telling about the importance of figuring this all out, which you've been a very viable team member to do. And I think what I've enjoyed so far, and I'm going to enjoy a lot more, is you dig it. You're into it, and you liked everything about the program, and still do. So okay, so future generations. Okay, those. I always, once again, I will tell people, we have to believe there's not just only a single, greatest generation. There have to be future greatest generations, because it makes people like you and me and all of us, want to ensure we pass on the right kind of incentives to those young people. So you're talking to some young people now, and what would you tell them? Why is this important to their lives?
You talking space or STEM or all the above?
I think, maybe all the above. Space, STEM, STEM as a stepping stone, okay? But, all of that stuff that is, not the other stuff, in a weird sort of way.
Not the easy stuff.
Exactly. That's right. Yeah. Well said.
No, I enjoy talking STEM. I think it's tremendously important.
And STEM is, just to remind everybody.
Oh, STEM. All the high school and elementary school kids know STEM because they've already been beat around the head, their shoulders with it. But STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math. These are the harder topics unless you've got the aptitude for it. This is necessary for us as a nation because we are dependent. As our nation, our infrastructure is all dependent on the science and the technologies. The electrical grid, the fuel distribution, the communications that keeps our commerce alive. We need all of this. Our adversaries are prepared to take it away from us if they have to, whether it's a cyber attack or whatever. They are planning to and capable of at some point in the future. So we have to have our next generation of folks who have enough engineers and scientists and mathematicians to actually keep the infrastructure going and make sure that we stay viable in what we're doing. Okay, so that's part of it, is we need this as a nation. The other part that I like about STEM is I think you got maybe two flavors of kids out there. Those that are actually have a good background. Their one or more parents have been to college, or mom and dad have enough money that they're pretty well set up. We know you need to go to college and things like that. For them, I want to help them at least understand, if you've got the aptitude for math, science, technology, go there. Okay, it can be exciting. But then there's the other group, and it's a continuum, whatever. Mom and dad didn't go to college. They may not have, they may have menial jobs, first or second generation in the United States. A lot of these folks, nobody is telling them you can do it, because if I don't know, I can't teach you what I don't know. So I can't tell you how important college is if I never went. So somebody has to help them understand, if you want to be more than homeless or have a menial job for the rest of your life, it's about school. It's about getting an education. And if you've got the aptitude, for heaven's sake, science, technology, engineering, and math. So this is part of the message. It's not for everybody, but for those that it is for heaven's sake, let's go. I mean, I'll help mentor you guys if you need it. I actually was tutored, back in, I think it was the 6th grade, when I wasn't getting some of the algebra that we were doing. But once I got it, you got to get the basics. But once I got it, from then on, I was ready to go. But you got to get them over that hump. And if you can do that, that's what I'm trying to get going on this stuff. It's so exciting. But, somebody's got to show you the way or let you know you can get there. Anyway, that's at least a short shot at it.
No, I think it's great. I think it's your message, you can do it, is absolutely critical. And I always add one more thing. It's your turn.
That's the next generation.
That's right.
Yeah.
In the sequencing that is occurring, you've been there, I've been there, etc. Well, now it's their turn. Yeah. So this is important, because they're going to carry it on.
And I need someone to step up and take their turn.
That's right. That's exactly right. And, we look at the Air and Space Museum as helping connect the dots, okay, certainly of how we got to here, but we know we have to be about everything you're talking about today, and that's that we have to be about the future, because we have to help them vision it, because visioning the future isn't always natural, to everyone. And so what's that?
No, I'm just chuckling. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it is. And sometimes just a little bit of coaxing at the right time in life. I had a friend of mine years and years ago who went through BUDS training, basic underwater demolition school, SEAL training, and he rang the bell. Okay, he dropped out. This was a very, very dear friend of mine growing up. I would have told you he was not the one to drop out. And I asked him, his name was Bill. I said, "Hey, Bill, come on, explain to me. I know you were, we were in Boy Scouts together, all that kind of stuff." He said, "I didn't have someone at the right moment to kick me in the behind, okay, to give me that just little push that every so often we all need, okay,
really good.
And that we all need." Okay, so let's talk a little bit, and you alluded to this a while ago, risk, because some people would claim that others in our society have become risk averse. How important is it to really, and I'm thinking we chatted, but I want to expound on that just a little bit, the willingness to take on and accept risk. There are times when you're out there alone, all by that EVA you're out there on, okay, and it is risky. Everything about it is risky, but you did it.
First of all, I didn't think that the EVA was particularly risky. NASA treats it as risky. I guess because not only you're in the shuttle in space, but you're then going to step outside. But each of the technologies are very mature. We know how to do spacewalk. We know how to build the suits. To me, the risky part of doing the space station was the fact that NASA wasn't prepared for as many as we wanted to do. And then you start scaling it up. You have to be ready. At that point, when I went to space, I was the EVA, extravehicular activity or spacewalk lead, getting ready for Hubble telescope repair and space station. And when they realized we were going to do a space walk, or two of them really planned, oh, you're going to do a spacewalk, we got to get gloves. I actually wore Pete Conrad's gloves that he wore to the moon. You've got to get gloves, and they almost have to be a jewel fit for you. Even if you and I take the same size gloves, every joint in your finger has to have a little hinge over it. And I can do a little bit expanding and contracting on that to move them, but you can't have too much down in the crotch of your finger, or it'll hurt when you work it. So those were Dave Clark gloves. Have you ever seen those light green earmuffs that some folks wear? That's David Clark. That company is about 40 miles north of my house in Rhode Island. So I went up there. Why do you guys get out of the business? We need you back in it. And actually, they got back in it, and they were doing gloves again for us and things like that. But the gloves have to work. But the suit is pretty good. We keep improving on it. Like, I didn't have the little jetpack on mine. We've got that for space station, because if I jumped away from the shuttle with all my energy, they could come get me. They just scoop me up in the shuttle. If I fall off the space station and I'm not tethered, you can swim or do anything you want. You're pushing against space, so you're not moving. So you have to be able to self-rescue. But this whole thing about risk, I heard it this morning. I think they're talking about it. Somebody said that, to go to space, a million things have to work together and work right, but only one thing can break it. Well, we go mute, triply redundant. We do as much as we can to make it safe. But even if you're 10 nines of reliability, 99.999, there's still a chance. But you got to understand, there's a chance when you drive to work. There's a chance when you walk outdoors. Life is risky. Choose your risks, but don't be afraid. Make it as safe as you can. If it's still not an acceptable risk for you, don't do it. My wife, this is COVID-19 is going on. My wife wants to go visit the kids in Illinois. All right. You wear your face mask, you get actually called NASA. I says, what do you guys recommend? And they say, don't do it. You could probably do it safely and come back, but going through the airports, doing all this stuff, you're liable to pick it up. Then you'll take it to visit with the kids and your grandkids. They'll take it and give it to their grandparents. You've just started the cycle going again. Why? If it's an emergency, then do what you have to. But if not, do the sane approach and, be a little bit risk averse, because you don't know if you're subject to this thing or not. And at 75 years old, I probably am. It gets the codger class faster than it gets the youngsters on it. So, that's just being risk averse. So that's being an intelligent risk taker. But man, there are so many, whether it's mountain biking or climbing a mountain to watch a sunrise or a sunset. I mean, people ask, what was your favorite thing on orbit? And it's looking out the window. It's watching the sunrise and the sunset every 45 minutes. Oh, do you feel closer to God? I feel close to God when I see that, but no more so than when I climb a mountain or I'm flying an aircraft at sunrise and just watch the sun break through the horizon. It is gorgeous. I mean, that's what does it for me. So the risk, if it's worth it, it's you control it, but I never felt I was in danger when I went to that space.
Good.
Maybe that was blind luck. I don't know.
Well, I think that you kind of have to believe in the system. Okay, yeah. As being an aviator, you can't sit around and worry about things that that you can't control.
Do your job.
That's exactly
Fly the
right.
aircraft.
And that's right. And you're going to believe that everything's going to work like it should. And when it doesn't, you'll take it on at that time. Now, I have to say one thing though. You mentioned a million a few minutes ago. Now, I thought because of you as a helicopter pilot, I thought that was the definition of a helicopter, was a million parts flying in close formation.
There you go.
through the sky. So that's just a internal joke between us. And you kind of talked.
We're talking about risk. When they want you to be an aviator, when you want to be an aviator, and they accept you into this, they're going to teach you how to be safe. They really do. It's the basics. You got your checklist. You've got the Navy uses anonymous any mouse. Anybody can call up and just explain a problem they had and what their solution set was. But the bottom line is continue to fly the aircraft. We can do these things safely. We really can. You just have to study and do your job.
Yep.
But they do train you.
Yep. Well, and their processes, you just, if something does go wrong, okay, you're going to start going bam, bam, bam. We used to, you'll get a kick out of this one. I've told this one, around the museum, is that, the master caution light is going off in front of you and lights are in the cockpit are going on and you're going, I may have to do something here because it's, becoming significant. And, we had, remember, boldface of mercy, rote memory and all that. And, we always used to say the first procedure was to wind the clock. Now, see, you'll get a kick out of this one. And somebody would say, well, why are you going to wind the clock? Well, the answer is so you don't do anything wrong. So you take that extra 10 or 20 seconds, and before you shut that engine down, you've made a sound decision to shut that engine down or whatever procedure that.
Is it the correct engine that I'm shutting down? Yeah. Is the one that's on fire? Oh, no, not the good one.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you look at space travel, space in general, whether it's ISS, deep space, or whatever, and you were to say, what has it given us most? In other words, I've often used aviation and space, of course, as a technology overlay. That if you look at December 17, 1903, the Wright brothers to today, and you combine all of aviation and space, it's an overlay of the technological development of really the entire world.
Okay.
So if you were to kind of look at a few things that you thought, this is what space really gave to us, what would they be?
Oh, NASA used to publish called spin-offs. It was a monthly. It was a monthly, then they went to every 6 months or so, but it was just a big volume of all the things. It started off with Tang, Teflon, freeze-dried foods. Food preservation, freeze-drying was something that hadn't been done before. NASA basically invented that. We got remote medical, so remote doctors, remote telemedicine, which was invented. The various sensors, whether the heart monitors and things like that, crystal watches for really good timing. Management paradigms for being able to bring things like the space shuttle together. Built in every state of the nation, coming together. They invented technology readiness levels, software readiness levels, manufacturing readiness levels that the Department of Defense still uses today. The management capabilities to pull all these things together, microprocessors. I could probably make a list of 1,000 things if I wanted to think about it hard enough. But the communications infrastructures are just it's such a huge program, and they were so innovation, and they still are. I think it's
and that one that's in everybody's garage, WD-40.
Oh yeah,
is a great one. We have WD-40, of course, right here in San Diego, so they're real close to us. Okay, I'm gonna circle back for a second. Okay, with the Musk, Bezos, NASA, public-private partnerships like never before in our space future. What do you think of that?
I think it's wonderful. What we've got now, it's a partnership of necessity. But one of the questions I get off is how could we possibly have canceled the shuttle program without a replacement? It's all about what your focus is, and focus equals money. And I say your focus, this terms it's Congress and things like that. Under President Obama, and I'm saying he was wrong for it, I'm just saying he did it. He canceled most of the contracts from 2011 out because we had other things, wars in Afghanistan, and it depends on the focus of the administration. Well, that left NASA high and dry without a capability on it. Remind me where I'm going with this.
We're talking about the significance of the public-private partnership.
Private, yeah. So
And,
we cancel it, but it's a function of money. NASA cannot afford to run both the space station, go to the moon, go to Mars. There's not that much money available to us, and we know that. So what we've done is we've gone to NASA. Will do those things that Elon and his company probably can't do so well. He may prove us wrong on that, but commercial enterprise can get to low Earth orbit better and more economically than NASA can do so. So let them do that. We will focus on deep space. Now, Elon Musk says he wants to go to Mars and beat us there or to the moon. He may do so. What a wonderful challenge. You want to see people compete? Give them a challenge. You want to see people start to stagnate? Have no challenge around there. Just let them do whatever they want to. You almost need the impetus of competition to really make you do as well as you can do. So I think it's beautiful. And Elon is a good example of lean and mean and just really focus on it. NASA was that way back in the Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo days. We're now a fairly good-sized bureaucracy within NASA, and you just tend to grow. But Elon is coming up from scratch again and just making it work.
We've seen that same thing with what's that?
Beat the ponies, man. Come on, let's go.
Well, we've seen that same thing with Jeff Bezos and his program.
Absolutely. I don't mean to only admire Elon, but there's a number of them coming on.
Well, and Jeff, especially from his belief in how important the moon is to us.
Sure.
Certainly, he's got that. They have that show on Amazon, which we would be familiar with, called The Expanse, and you'll see, some of the feelings about how important the moon and deep space, as you said at the very beginning, space is very, very important to us.
Absolutely.
As a people. So I think that is that certainly is a takeaway. So when you look at Artemis and the Gateway program and returning people to the moon, you ready to go to the moon?
No. Okay. I wish if I was 35, I would be in line pushing for it. I went to a technical session a couple of years back. I mean, they invite us periodically to come back to NASA, back to the astronaut office, and they give the old geezers, the old guys. And I used to be the Apollo guys were the old guys for us, and all of a sudden I'm the old guys for this current generation. But they're going through what they're doing on space station, their plans for the Gateway and Orion and going to the moon. Man, I'm so excited. I just wish I was 35 and I could be doing this again. Oh, I wish I was in your shoes. That's why the kids today, it's just, man, it's your turn. It really is. It's awesome what we're doing.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. So as you're looking at all of this, because you stay abreast of it, okay, what are some of the most exciting elements, okay, to the space program as you see it into the future? We've talked about certainly deep space. We talked about the moon, the Mars. If you looked at those 3 or 4 things that you think are really important, why we venture into space again, what would they be?
One of the things we're doing when we go back to moon is this is going to be a commercial partnership again. NASA, it doesn't say we're going back to the moon. We're going forward to the moon. When we did Apollo, the whole goal was to touch the moon and come back safely by the end of the decade. And yeah, we grabbed a couple of rocks, moon rocks. Ooh, wow. Now we're going to go back and we're going to explore. We're probably going to the south pole of the moon. That has almost a perpetual twilight. That's also where there was a major asteroid impact. So you got a gouge that goes maybe 3/4 of a mile into the moon. So I got asteroid debris. I've got a gouge into the moon so we can see what maybe the moon is made of. Is it different? Is it the same? And we're looking for something that will make deep space economically viable. If we can find rare earth elements, other things that we simply don't have on Earth, because they've gone to the melted core of the Earth, but they're still on the surface of the moon, things that we may not even know exist. So I believe we're going to find some good stuff. We're also proving the technologies by going to the moon that will let us then go to Mars. One of them is the engines. Classmate of mine, Franklin Chang. Are you familiar with the Vasimir engine?
Yes.
Okay, I think that is so cool. I mean, Franklin's a classmate of mine. I mean, I flew him back to Rhode Island. He spent the night at our house with dinner back up in Rhode Island, things like that. And so this Vasimir engine, variable specific impulse, superconducting electromagnetically controlled plasma engine. He takes argon gas and inserts it into the first electromagnetic chamber and heats it with radio frequency waves to 1,000,000 degrees Fahrenheit. That is now a plasma stripped of electrons, but now it's totally controllable with this superconducting electromagnet shell you've got it in. And then it moves to the next chamber and then again heated and spun up almost like you would lighten a laser until it's ready to go out. So now he's spinning this up to 5,000,000 degrees Fahrenheit. and he's going to eject it at a high percentage of the speed of light. And it's just Franklin. This is crazy. But this is what he's been doing his entire life. When he first came to NASA, when we were new guys back in 1980, so what is it you do? He says, I work on plasma. You work in blood? No, plasma. So, okay, that was fun. But Franklin's just got that thing going, and when that thing is ready, that'll get us to Mars in less than in a month and a half or so instead of a year.
That is the real key.
Yeah, that solves part of the radiation problem, the food problem, how long we're going to be there. We are going to have to one day be prepared to spend years in transit, if not lifetimes in transit, to go to other solar systems. But it's, again, building on the shoulders of giants that you have to learn how to do it and go there. So it's all exciting.
Yeah, you leave at age 35 and come back at 75.
There you go.
Okay. Well, as we start to wrap this up a little bit,
Okay.
and I'm going to put you in a couple roles, okay? You're now the NASA administrator, okay?
Mm-hmm.
What are the first 1, 2, or 3 things that you would strongly consider as the NASA administrator to make us better? Us meaning the United States, certainly, as a leader in space, us as a world leader, meaning,
Mm-hmm.
having some nations, because not all can play on the same ball field, unfortunately, but have some of them involved with us. And who might those be? Okay, that wouldn't steal technology from us. That would be, worth.
No need to mention countries, or we're getting very political here.
And I'm trying to stay away from that.
Yeah.
But you're the NASA administrator, and a couple things you would consider in that space program for America.
Well, I think we've got a good program laid out on going to the moon and potentially to Mars. The key to any good program, though, is the money to make it happen. So I'm looking at the commercial NASA partnerships and how we pull those together. When you look at the history of the world in terms of joint programs, the 3 largest joint programs in the history of the world are the CERN Collider, the International Space Station, and interestingly enough, the F-35. Okay, leadership in space parlays to leadership on Earth. I mean, our friends on Earth are our friends in space. They want to join us. You guys going to go to the moon on your own? No, but we'd be delighted to join you. And when we go to the moon, it won't be the United States is going to the moon. No, it's we are going to the moon. It's not the United States' space station. It's the International Space Station. And the other nations are very proud of their involvement in it. So I think we're already doing these things as a NASA administrator, maybe emphasize them a little bit more. One thing that NASA was doing when I was a young astronaut is we were actually going out to the various schools, high schools, elementary schools, school systems. And I'm offering that in San Diego if they want to try it with me, and then we can bring others in as appropriate. But, as part of your program, let's use the technologies and the cool things that are going on in space, and probably have to be working through the museum because you've got surrogate, you're the astronaut areas in there. But we could tie these together so they understand it is space, it is technology, it is STEM, and bring so that is one thing I'd probably work together or try to work a little bit more as the administrator. But I'd also get a good lobby going with various senators and congressmen so they understand how important this is to the nation.
I think that's an excellent point because I don't necessarily believe that all of the members of Congress understand its importance. Okay.
Amen. And without getting into politics, I know.
That's just an opinion,
Yes,
certainly.
sir. I agree.
And because you're exactly right, we have to figure out a way to pay for it.
Yeah.
Okay. You know,
And
but
international is the way to do it. And leading the free world into doing these things are the way it should be.
right.
And I can almost imagine the movie or the book, someday there'll be an ark. Okay. It won't be Noah's Ark. It may not be NASA's Ark, but there'll be an ark from Earth to go to other solar systems, maybe a series of them, because one or two may fail. And we're currently looking for Goldilocks planets kind of sort of like Earth. It has got liquid water and an atmosphere, and it's not 20 times the size of Earth, so I'm squished to the size of an ant just by the gravity there. I mean, it's got to be a Goldilocks type Earth, but they're out there. We got to find them, and we got to figure out how to get there.
Well, it sounds like asteroid resorts. How's that?
Okay.
Okay. Well, okay. So this is a little bit free form. What do you want to tell us? What do you want us to know? What do you want the listeners to know? We're also going to, for all those that are with us today, we're going to be adding some other elements to the overall presentation
Okay.
that Woody has researched and believes are critical to any kind of a presentation such as this. So, Woody, you get to close it out here. You just get to, spill your guts. How's that?
Well, for the older folks, let your congressman, let other folks know that space is important to the world. For your kids and children, help them understand STEM. If they're not big on STEM, that's fine. We need philosophers and we need folks to study ancient English literature and things like that. We need STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. If you have those talents, you'll always have a job. We need them. And keep those cards and letters coming, folks. It's exciting what's going on. I'm very interested in keeping the excitement going and sharing it.
Well, Woody, thank you very much, and for everyone here, and I'm saying this again, certainly, but Woody and I were able to chat a little bit before we started this, and Woody has been a tremendous supporter and friend of the San Diego Air and Space Museum. Not just our space guy, because I think I would tell you that our education department says Woody's our astronaut, and I just want you to know how much we appreciate you. We appreciate your voice, your vision, and that you're an inspiration to those young people who are gonna make those choices in their lives that are so critical to their futures. And as you said earlier, making them as early as they possibly can in that STEM focus will give them all sorts of options.
Making the choice is important. And you start making that choice at about the 6th grade.
Okay, you heard it from Woody Spring. Woody?
Thanks. Enjoy it, Dave.
Sounds like a Walter Cronkite ending, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very, very much.
Bye-bye.